Hello and welcome back to the gallery, everybody. I hope you're all well and thank you for your patience. I had a restful, life-giving holiday with family and friends on the farmland where I grew up in Ohio. Those 40 acres I talked about in my review for the film Minari. I've also been focusing pretty intently on my poetry writing, but it's good to be back here in the gallery again. I happen to love making lists, and I'm considering putting up for you all a brief bonus video of my favorite dramas list, many of which aren't already in the gallery. You can let me know in the comment section if this is something you're wanting me to do, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this channel. That's probably the best shout of encouragement you can send me here. Today's a first for my channel. I'm putting up two works of art in the gallery for a unique side-by-side analysis. So get your favorite beverage if you wish to join me. I've got a glass of red wine today. Make yourself comfortable, and here we go. Both of these films were released in 2017, but from different countries. Both movies have titles connected to the word light, and both movies deal with the same particular subject, visual impairment, and broaden out from there to the more universal theme of loss. By the way, the loss of eyesight is a subject of special personal interest to me because of my family history with it. Both my great-grandmother and her son, my grandfather, lost their eyesight as adults. Before this happened, my great-grandmother was an artist, a pretty amazing one, a painter and a clothing designer. Both of these movies are also more artistic in style, with fairly contemplative, slower pacing, and a story that is image-driven, I would say, rather than dialogue or action-driven. The same particular subject of photography is present in both stories as well, and both films broaden out from this to consider, I think, a larger theme of how art connects with people and how art can connect people with each other relationally. First up is the Japanese and French collaboration movie Radiance. This art house film has been critiqued as strong on cinematography and weak on plot, and this may be a fair criticism. However, I think the movie is effective on both these levels when taken for what it is. A highly impressionistic film, both in images and in the storyline. Now, I'm thinking here of the overall feel of an impressionist style painting that tries to quickly capture the lighting, the color, the feeling, and the narrative of a moment, often in a dreamy, blurred way, and convey that overall mood to the viewer. The Japanese director of Radiance is using her particular style of storytelling that seems to me to be both minimalist and mindful, with a very intentional use of light and camera shots. And the second film is a South Korean short promo movie called Two Lights, Relumino. At just 30 minutes in length, I'm impressed that this little gem manages to convey a satisfying story within the limitations of its runtime. And maybe this isn't surprising because of its experienced, excellent actors who convincingly inhabit their characters. Both of these films make me consider the question of how does a person navigate the loss of a precious part of oneself, a part of one's identity, the ability to see, one's passion or vocation, a relationship with another person through separation, illness, or death. I can only conclude, along with the Radiance female lead, that it's scary and difficult. That's what she says after trying to identify with just a small portion of what the male lead might be experiencing as he gradually loses his vision. She closes her eyes and she tries to walk, guided by those bumps on the sidewalk, the tactile paving for the visually impaired. Change can be painful and scary because change means loss, and that loss may be something we grieve. But change can also make space for something new and good. The quote I've chosen for this review comes from Thomas Merton. Art enables us to find ourselves and lose ourselves at the same time. Now, I think this quote fits the theme of loss as well as the theme of how art connects with people and how art can connect people to each other. A painting or a piece of music, sculpture, or dance, a poem, a movie, a photograph can help us to know ourselves and to know God, the one beyond ourselves. Art can reveal true things about ourselves, our world, other people, and so help us to understand these things better. But art can also act as a letter of introduction, so to speak, and help us get out of a dead-end cycle of only self to discern the transcendent. The material stuff of art can reveal the supernatural. I'm reminded of the incisive words of Jesus to two people he noticed following him when he said, "What are you looking for?" This is a question that cuts through right to the heart of things and really asks the person to consider, what is your deepest desire? What do you want in your life? And might the answer to this essential question end up taking a person outside of themselves? Now I've got a few select images from both films to illustrate this theme of art enabling us in our ultimate search to both find ourselves and lose ourselves. Here's a focused image of the female lead of Radiance. As a character, she is especially attentive to her surroundings, and she's searching for a perspective outside of her own, and I like that about her. She is an audio descriptor of films for the visually impaired, and she's quite conscientious about her work. However, she ends up being reprimanded by our male lead at one point. He tells her, "Don't impose," when she at times gives her personal interpretation of what's happening in the film instead of just sticking to description only. She's clearly wishing to be helpful to the visually impaired audience that she serves, but she's actually getting in the way of their experience of the art. Here's an image from Relumino that shows the way art connects us with others, I think. With the help of a piece of technology for the visually impaired, the female lead gets to study this picture of the male lead taken in their photography class, and in this way, she can see his face. The male lead in Radiance is a professional photographer, coming to grips with the fact that he's quickly losing his eyesight and will no longer be able to continue as a photographer. Some curious children at the park approach him, and he takes their picture and captures a moment, but this is also a sort of goodbye for him, perhaps one of the last few photographs he will take in his lifetime. We see here the fleeting nature of things. And this scene from Relumino represents the fleeting nature of things as well, but it shows, on the other hand, a beginning as our male lead, who's in the earlier stages of vision loss, has just become a new member of a photography class for the visually impaired, and so he's practicing a new art and connecting with a new community of people. And here he is in his occupation as a piano tuner, but with some help from a piece of technology, he's able to look at a sheet of music again and play the piano. And being able to see, to read a new piece of music is something he had lost for a while. The idea of loss, loneliness, and searching is present in both movies, but it's pretty pronounced in Radiance, I think. We get an extended scene of our female lead searching alone through the woods for her mother, who apparently has dementia and has wandered off. But we see in the rest of the movie that after her dad's death and the loss of her mother's personality, our female lead is searching on a deeper level for these parents, for the lost bits of herself after losing what each of them brought out in her. I'm thinking too of that scene, really a touching scene, where she lays out all the bits of things from her dead father's wallet, and she fingers each of them and names each of them carefully, memorizing them. In the end, we get a necessary, life-giving reciprocity for our female lead when the male lead finally says to her, "Stay where you are. Let me come toward you. I'll come to find you." In this scene from Relumino, we get a similar echo of the searching and the finding, the life-giving act of another person who seeks you out in order to know and understand you better. Both films contain a scene at the top of a set of stairs. Here in Radiance, the hesitant pause in the dark at the top of the stairs seems symbolic of our male lead facing down the sightless future that he's frightened of, but which he must adapt to and learn to navigate. In Relumino, we get a similarly dark scene for our male lead, minus the stairs, as he's grappling with navigating his new world. And then here in the same movie, we have our female lead dealing with a set of stairs, but she's really dealing with misunderstanding, the older woman's unwanted assistance, and this stranger's rudeness. She imposes her own feelings upon the female lead with pitying and assuming that our female lead wishes to end her own life. In both movies, we see the main characters reach out to one another to form a new connection as they find their way in unsettling circumstances. Here we have our leads in Radiance as our male lead reaches out to hold the hand of our female lead, and here we have our leads in Relumino as the two of them begin to understand one another better and are willing to meet outside of their photography class to forge a new relationship. In Radiance, we see this prism several times, as well as the horizon and hills. All this, I'm thinking it may be symbolic perhaps of the finding and the losing and an ultimate finding in the end. In a prism, light is bent to reveal a spectrum of colors, right? And when I look at this imagery, I think of the psalm, I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. From our limited earthbound perspective, we can only see an arc or semicircle of rainbow instead of the actual full circle. But in the book of Revelation, we're told that from a heavenly perspective with no horizon to cut off our view, we will see a complete rainbow circle and the completion of all of God's promises. For now, in all these temporary things, these beginnings and endings, I'm reminded of a poem by Seamus Heaney. It's called Postscript. Here it is. And sometime, make the time to drive out west into County Clare along the flaggy shore in September or October, when the wind and the light are working off each other so that the ocean on one side is wild with foam and glitter, and inland among stones the surface of a slate-gray lake is lit by the earthed lightning of a flock of swans, their feathers ruffed and ruffling white on white, their fully grown, headstrong-looking heads tucked or cresting or busy under water. Useless to think you'll park and capture it more thoroughly. You are neither here nor there, a hurry through which known and strange things pass as big soft buffetings come at the car sideways and catch the heart off guard and blow it open. This poem seems to me like a meditation on the art of writing and living, and given the temporary nature of beautiful things. Passing through life from moment to moment, we're just going to have stupefying moments of beauty, and we're also going to have our hearts blown wide open. Just as I think the two movies in this review do, Heaney seems to be both inviting us to make the time to take in beauty, while at the same time he's acknowledging the fleeting nature of that beauty and our inability to really truly capture it. The hunt for beauty is a worthy endeavor. It changes us. We find ourselves and we lose ourselves. I've got two pieces of music for you. First up is the title track from the film Radiance. I think this is a nice lengthy composition that I like to listen to sometimes while writing. See what you think using the link down below in the description. And the second piece of music is Regina Spektor's song, Becoming All Alone. I just love the line in this song about having a beer with God. In fact, I'd been thinking a lot about loneliness and ended up writing a poem about it recently, and then I had to listen to this song and I thought, Regina and I seem to be thinking along similar lines here. I hope you enjoy listening to Becoming All Alone. And thanks for spending your time here in the gallery. And now, as we go on our way, let's do our best to stay awake, to gather the beautiful.